My name's Joseph Scaff, and I get tattooed by Chiwon. I started getting work with Chiwon on November 2021, right? And yeah, I've started with my back piece with my first tattoo, and did both sleeves and both legs. It's been a huge commitment on both ends, and we've built a friendship outside of me just getting tattooed. We've become pretty good friends, and I've traveled with him around, tattooed in other places. And to me, he's not just my artist, he's a good friend of mine, right? So, I've only tattooed with him. So, we start, it's usually like a 6 to 8 hour day, but it goes by quick. From what I hear, he's super gentle-handed. But for me, I think he taps out before I do. So he gets sore, but I don't get me wrong, I've almost cried a few times getting tattooed by him, but it's great, right? There's a lot of quiet time, but then there's a lot of talking, a lot of laughing, right? We have fun when we're tattooing. And I think for me, like I said earlier, it's you want to be comfortable with them, and we have a good connection, and I think it's important to have that with your artist. I saw his work on Instagram in about 2017 or 18, and I messaged him on Instagram, and then I started messaging the shop, right? But I didn't hear back from him until 2020, right? So, but I hadn't had a tattoo yet. So, it worked out at the right time. And, I started getting tattooed when I was 37 years old. And, so I waited a long time. So it was fresh canvas, and I was a little bit more mature, and, his work, my opinion, is the best, right? So, it worked out because I'm doing a full bodysuit by him, all one artist, and it's the best of the best. I think for me, you get what you pay for, right? And he's, like I said, he's the best. I remember back then, I messaged him, I emailed the shop, and I told him a situation about a friend that passed away and what I wanted to do for him. And he emailed me back and said, "I love your idea. I want to do it for you. Let's meet." We set up a consult, and I met him. We went over the idea. He's like, "Okay, I want to change a few things, but we're going to go with that theme." And that's what we did. And we booked it, and off we were. It was pretty funny because I'm a pretty hairy guy, and I never got tattooed before, and I had to get my back shaved. And I actually got my dad to shave my back, and I got razor burn all over my back. So the day I came in, Chiwon looked at my back. He's like, "Bro, I can't tattoo on this." So we actually had to start on my ass. And
nice.
Yeah, it was really good. It was pretty funny. The one thing I love about Chiwon is, he's got a very, he doesn't have an ego. He's always learning, trying new things. And he's so talented. But to see a guy so talented, learning off other people and trying to change his style and his way, it's pretty rare, right? Because you get a lot of these artists that, they're good and they know they're good, and they just, they run with that. But that's one thing I love about him is, he's teachable, right? He's learning, and he's been doing it a long time, but he's still, he's any opportunity he has, he's, going for it. And I think that's cool because you don't see that often, right? When you start a piece with him, we'll start, let's say, my inner arm, we'll sit for let's say Monday, Tuesday, and he doesn't stop until it's done. You know what I mean? Whatever that looks like. You know what I mean? So if it's a 10-hour day, it's a 10-hour day. You know what I mean? He gets it done, right? So, he doesn't cut corners. Every line in his work it's the best, right? The one thing I like about him is, like I said, we become friends outside of tattooing, and you know, he'll check on me, you know, like, you know, if he hasn't heard from me, he'll call him to say hi. And you know, like he's a guy that cares, you know what I mean? He cares about his clients, you know what I mean? Like, I think I'm not the only guy that he has a relationship with. You know, a lot of his artists, when we go to a convention and you see people show up to go on stage for him, there's like 30 guys that will show up, and it doesn't matter where he goes. Right. You know what I mean? It could be Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, Kelowna, wherever he is. Right. You know, people show up for him, right? And that just shows what kind of guy he is. You know, he said it to me in the beginning. He's like, okay, you know, we started with my back peel or my whatever, my ass, my back, whatever. And he's like, you know, this is a commitment on both ends, you know? And I said, don't worry, I'll be here, right? And, you know, I show up, he shows up, you know? It's amazing. That's it. He's, I don't know, I care about him a lot, you know what I mean? I care about him a lot. We built a good friendship, we talk, you know, and, you know, I think it's so important to have that, you know? This guy's seen me naked more than anybody else in my life. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's insane, right?